As you know, in the Unmoored World and Dragons Dogma 2, there are a lot of things that you can find nowhere else in the game outside of the Unmoored World. I'm going to quickly run through a bunch of these items and the locations where you can find the chests that hold these items or the bosses that you have to defeat to get these items. Let's get into it. Now to kick this off, we're going to start out right outside of Vermont, which is inside of where the river used to be. And as you know, in the Unmoored World, all the water is gone, which makes a lot of locations that you're going to be looking for inside of where the water used to be. This particular item that you're trying to get is going to be from this undead chimera. I think it's called a gore chimera to be more specific. It may not be fully undead. I've seen a lot of speculation around it. Nonetheless, you have to defeat this thing one way or another and loot its body. It's going to drop the Dominators armor when you loot it. Now I know what you're thinking. Hey, I can already purchase this from some of the end game people, but this way you don't have to purchase anything and you still get a really good warrior set of armor for free, essentially. Quickly moving on to another location that you have to go to for the end game bosses anyway, you want to make your way to the Vernworth Southern Ruins, where you're going to find one of the giant red beams where I am circling normally. Now once you defeat this boss, obviously you don't normally get to see this, but you'll see a small cavern that you can go to just to the right of where the main entrance is into this arena. All you're going to find down here is a single chest that's actually going to have the Summoner's Crown inside of it, which is a very useful item in my opinion. Because if you're like me, you don't want to actually purchase a whole lot of gear for the Trickster vocation, this is a great one to grab because it's end game level and it's also free. Now taking a quick jump to the northeast side of Vermont, you're going to come across a nameless village, which is going to be really close to those red clouds, so you want to go to this area before it does get swallowed up. And thankfully you don't have to defeat any of the boss type monsters in this area. All you have to do is follow that tiny little path that you see on the map to where all the water used to be and be inside of this cove, where you're going to see a chest just hanging out by itself down here. Now for thieves, this is going to be a very useful end game item because it's going to be the Hood of Darkness, one of the few unique thief items that you can find throughout the world. Now I think it's a pretty good helm. I just like the fact that they're doing something very ninja-like in the fact that you're also a thief and have a lot of coverings in and of itself, but that's just me. Now we're going to start heading towards the Marshland Settlement, which if you don't know where that is, it's closer to the Elf's Town than it is Vermont, but it's the northwest area of Vermont, if that helps whatsoever. It's kind of stuck between the Elf Town and Vermont. Nonetheless, when you actually get to this location, you're going to find that this entire pond is dried up and now a new area is unlocked for you to explore. Now you're going to run across a lot of skeletons, but there is going to be a very particular chest to open up. It's very easy to find because it's going to be hidden in a tiny little corner after you start getting attacked by all these different levels of skeletons. Inside you're going to find the Conquerors Sabatons, or however you correctly pronounce that word, and it's going to be a really strong pair of legs that you can put on your fighter. Personally, I think it's the top 3 of the legs, but you tell me in the comments. And thankfully we're not going very far for this next chest either, so you want to make your way to the Mountain Ruins, which is just northwest of where we were a second ago in the marshland area. Now if you remember in the regular game, this area is covered in water and there's going to be a lot of locations you're not able to get to until the Unmoored World, as you're starting to see a pattern here. Once you get to this particular area, jump off this little cliff that used to be a waterfall and you'll be able to find this chest just hanging out right next to a pillar. You're going to get the Predator's Maw inside of this, and I think it's one of the cooler looking helms in my opinion, especially for an archer where you normally just have a funny little hat on your head. I think this is going to be way better, and honestly the aesthetics are better than anything else. Now from the mountain shrine we're going west, southwest to be exact, into the area that used to be the Misty Marshes, and make your way to Illdoer's resting place. Thankfully there are no longer any mists in this area, so you can see everything going on. At this area you are going to have to face a lich that is going to give you the Cardinal robe, as you just saw after you loot their body. Now personally I'm not very sure how strong this really is. The elemental resistances and debilitation resistances are great, but I never really went hard into the sorcerer through my playthroughs, so you guys are going to have to let me know how strong this is, but nonetheless it's something you're not going to be able to find anywhere else outside of fighting this lich in the Unmoored World. So it's another cool thing that you can pick up and use in your later playthroughs if you really want to. So from Misty Marshes we're going to go directly south right near the Guerco Cavern, and more specifically the southernmost part of the Guerco Cavern, into where that giant section of the sea is now able to be explored. Now it may take you a little bit of time to find this exact location, but the easiest way to find this is when you're trying to get to the general area that you saw on the map on the southern part of the Guerco Cavern, and you start seeing a dragon that's either resting or just roaming about this area. Once you see that dragon, you know you're in the right spot. Simply defeat it, get your additional Worm's Life crystals, and open up the chest that's in the little corner right next to this thing. This is actually one of the better Greeves I think in the entire game. Not only do the Vanguarders Greeves look really cool, they have a lot of elemental and debilitation resistances, and you can use it on a fighter or a warrior depending on what you want to put yourself or your pawn through. It also has a great scaling aspect depending on what smithing style you use. I used Dwarven and it works out phenomenally for me. Now this next item is also going to be due to a boss fight, and it's going to be a very interesting boss fight because this is a lich that can also have the power to summon and resurrect these giant cyclopses at the same time. So it's a bit of a harder fight if you're not prepared ahead of time. To find this very particular boss fight, you want to go to the east of Checkpoint Rest Town where all the waterfalls used to be and where the broken bridge is. This is going to be very easy to see because they're very easy to find in the open world. You just kind of have to look for the white glow that the liches have. Now of course once you defeat him you have to loot him and then you'll be able to get the item, which is a nice combination of trickster and mage vocations that can use this. It has some pretty good elemental resistance in my opinion, but it really is up to you guys what you want to use for either of the vocations, but it is a cool looking piece of gear at the end of the day. Now don't go too far from where you just defeated this mini boss because the next item is right across from this, right on top of where the waterfall, the main waterfall, used to be. As soon as all this water is gone in the Unmoored World, you'll be able to see that another cavern is open for you, and inside there you're going to find a single chest, which is kind of a theme with all these items. Now inside you're going to find another very interesting looking hood, which is going to be hard enough for me to pronounce, so I'm not going to try. As you can see, this is a helm that is focused on the warrior class, has really good debilitation resistances as well as elemental resistances, and scales really well depending on what smithing you use. Again, I'm a big proponent for the dwarven smithy, but you guys let me know what you find the best smithing to be for this particular helm. Now we're finally moving out of Vermont and into Bok-Batal, and just outside of Bok-Batal itself, you're going to come across a lesser dragon just outside of the main entrance into Bok-Batal. It's going to pretty much attack you as soon as it sees you, so be prepared for a fight if you go this direction early on. Obviously you have to defeat it and then loot its body. This mini boss is going to give you the Arch-Conjurers Robes, which again is a trickster item that you no longer have to buy. Personally, I'm going to end up using these when I try to do the trickster because now I don't have to go and buy a whole set for this particular vocation. Now from Bok-Batal, make your way to the southeast where you're going to find the river completely dried up, and make your way to the very particular ledge that I'm on right here, because if you jump off the wrong ledges you will not be able to access this particular chest unless you go and backtrack your way all the way to where you started to get to this particular ledge. Nonetheless, inside this chest you're going to find the Promethean hood, which is another endgame sorcerer item that you can use if you want to go that route or use it on your pawns. Again, I did not go very far with the sorcerer or the mage in my playthrough, so let me know down in the comments how useful this particular hood is. Now after you got the Promethean hood, don't go too far because on the other side of that wall, that other part where the waterfall used to be, is going to be a manticore that you have to defeat to get the next item on this list. Now you can jump down if you really want to. I don't recommend it. You could just make your way across the normal paths to get over to here to defeat this thing, but when you do defeat it any way you want to, you will get the Enshadowed battle garb. Now if I remember correctly, you can also purchase this from some of the shops inside of the endgame, but nonetheless this allows you to get it for free, and anything free is always good in my book. Now we finally reached a certain area on side of the volcanic island camp that has a lot of different things that you can get in the area very quickly. Thankfully there is a major port crystal that you can jump to anytime you want to, and in the end game you get so many fairy stones it's ridiculous. But at Moonswax Bridge, not too far as you saw on the map, you'll come across this lesser dragon with the pustules on it, and you're going to get the Soaring Surcoat, which I still use right now when I decide to go full Mystic Spear Hand. It's a great addition and it might be one of the better items you can get for the Mystic Spear Hand, but it's a great pickup nonetheless. Now this next item is a really cool item in my opinion as well, but it's a little tricky to find if you don't know where you're looking. Go to the location I'm showing you here from the volcanic island. It's going to be a set of little caverns that you have to come across and fight tiny monsters, and then you're going to also end up having to fight a golem at the end of it. Now I do also want to note that as you're exploring this area, it's not super difficult to find this area. It just takes a little bit of time and you'll get attacked by a bunch of different slimes and smaller monsters. There's also a couple other chests that you can go across as you're making way into this essential underground battle area where you have to fight this larger golem. Now I like this item for a couple different reasons. One, because it's one of the only things that you can get that's unique for the magic archer in this sort of way, not through different shops in the end game. It looks really cool in my opinion, and the magic defense plus strike resistance is phenomenal. Now the second to last item on this list can be found very close by and pretty much on top of where you were defeating the golem, and it is going to be in a chest that's really hidden well. It's going to be more towards an edge of the wall on top, again, where you fought this golem, and it's going to be in this more patchy area where you can see a bunch of these wisps, and it's just going to be sitting in a little ledge that's hard to find. So just take your time when you get to this location looking for this chest that has the Assassin's Breeches in here, which I think is a solid item as well. I think they're a pretty solid thief item that you get to use in the game, but not one of the best ones that you can find overall. And the final item is going to be a very easy one for you to find. All you have to do is get to this very particular location, which is right next to the volcanic island port crystal that's already there in the end game, and have to make your way down to the very bottom area where you have some overhanging areas, overhanging ledges, and you'll find this chest just hanging out in one of the corners. Inside of this chest, you're going to find the Monarch's crown, which is used for the fighter vocation, as you can see, and I think it's a pretty solid one as well. Not one that you're going to be using at the end game, because it's not by far the best item that you'll have for your fighter, but if you're feeling like role playing, you want to upgrade some stuff to look like a king in one of your playthroughs, this is a great one to pick up. Now, I know this video is a bit more long-winded than I normally do for my videos. I'm usually very concise, but since there was so many different items that were in this area in the Unmoored World in Dragons Dogma 2, I wanted to make sure I took the time to find them and make sure they were described as best as I possibly could so you guys can find them for yourselves. So let me know down in the comments which one of these items is your favorite. Personally, I really like the Archer one that we got. I think it's the only Archer one that you get in this kind of situation outside of the shops in the Unmoored World, but you guys can correct me down in the comments. Once again, if you guys did find this location guide helpful, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and I will catch you in the next video.